So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel. So as you may all know, the operating room is evolving today from a space defined by manual skills to one shaped by data, robotics, and digital tools. So today's conversation will bring together experts on this field to explore how technology is transforming surgery, enhancing precision, and changing the role of surgeon in the OR. We'll look at the promise, the challenges, and the future of the surgical suits. So we're joined by an outstanding group of panelists today, and I'll let them introduce quickly. Maybe you want to start, Lynne?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lynne, and I am a CEO and founder at Nousq, a 3-year-old Singapore medical device company with a ear tube surgical applicator that is robotic.
Mike?
Hello, I'm Mike Clouthier. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the Surgical Operating Unit within Medtronic, which includes the open laparoscopic and robotic tool set.
Hello, I'm Eduardo Fonseca. I'm the CEO of XCath, a neurovascular robotics company, and interim CEO of EndoQuest Robotics, a flexible endoluminal robotics company.
Hi, everybody. I'm Derrick from Biobot Surgical. I'm Chief Engineer in Biobot, and, well, pleasure to be here, meeting everybody as well in person.
Thank you. So as we've witnessed these evolutions from open surgery to minimally invasive surgery and now robotic-assisted surgery, can you tell us maybe how this, from your perspective, impacted both patient outcomes on one hand and on the other, the efficiency in the OR and in the hospital system as a whole?
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So what we have is actually we're in the space where we're dealing with middle ear infections. And so we have a current surgery to put a ear tube to treat. In surgery is to have many different surgical instruments fiddling around the ear, so it needs general anesthesia, operating theater setup, surgical microscope to see that 1 millimeter tube. So now with our device, it's a robotic single handheld device. With one click, we're able to insert the tube onto the eardrum in just 1 second, moving therefore the surgery out of the operating theater to the clinic. So you can imagine for the patients, no longer waiting months to years for this surgery. They do not have to fast overnight, come to a cold, scary place, afraid of the GA. Now that it's in the clinic, immediately walk in, click, home the same day, hearing immediately, back to school, eating 15 minutes time. Yeah.
Impressive. And maybe, Michael, from your perspective, how a big company like Medtronic thinks about this when they think robotic and move to robotics?
Yeah, I think given the long history that Medtronic has had in surgery, we've seen the evolution from open to minimally invasive and then to robotic. I think the advantages from a patient perspective are often reduced, bleeding, less hospital stay time. But we've also seen that transition translate for the surgical staff into increased cognitive load or increased setup times and other things that need to be overcome to get the benefit. But the benefits of the technology for like robotics, 3D visualization, very precise dexterity for the surgeon, which hopefully doesn't increase the beneficial outcomes for the patient as well. So there's trade-offs, and it takes time, I think, to eventually get to all of those great benefits for the patient, but they do come.
Eduardo, please, can you maybe introduce your system and how you thought about those elements when?
Wonderful. So XCath is a neuroendovascular robot that's meant ultimately to treat stroke telerobotically, so mechanical thrombectomy. And EndoQuest, the way to think about it is essentially an endoscope with single port surgical tools. And robotics really is in this very interesting evolution where it's hard to argue of the clinical benefit that going from an open heart procedure to a simple outpatient endoluminal endovascular procedure has done, or going from open to laparoscopy. Now, that begs the question, what is the future? And in my view, it'll be twofold. The first is robots that are able to bring the advent of a new class of procedures. So not just refining existing procedures, but creating an entirely new class of procedures, and such as EndoQuest. So procedures that couldn't be done today with the current tool set, and procedures that couldn't be done today because surgeons aren't there at the bedside. So that's telerobotics. The other very interesting thing is the advent of AI, but I guess we'll get into it later.
Okay, thank you. Derrick, about your system, how do you see it fits these constraints of bringing value both to the patient and to the hospital system as a whole without the burden of a new, maybe complex system like Michael described it before?
Well, so Biobot system is in the prostate space. We are a robotic positioning system for all sorts of needles. Burden or not, but I do agree with Mike, what he was saying earlier, that it does take a longer time to set up initially, to get a robot in there, get it all set up. But that increases with performance of the procedures. What we really benefit from, although that might be a disadvantage, is subsequently procedure times will be shorter because the robot is there to assist with the procedure. You're going to get better precision because this kind of precision can only be achieved with a robot. And with precision, you get, smaller puncture point, in our case, lesser puncture points or smaller cuts, all of which would result in faster patient recovery.
Yeah. So we understand that with robotic systems, we can maybe reach precision we could not before. This help, of course, in patient recovery. And regarding the impact on our system, our staff and hospital system, we need to think about how to reduce the burden. So maybe that brings us to a question regarding learning curves and support of the staff at the hospital. Is it something you think about when designing your offer, designing your product, how you will train people to use your system? Maybe Michael, you want to start?
I can start. Absolutely, it's something that's a lot of consideration right now. Since we're really in the infancy of our robotic endeavors, we are putting people. I mean, we're flooding it with people to help the surgeons and the staff set up the system, train them, and so forth. So, I mean, it's like a one-to-one course, a relationship between surgeons and staff, our own staff, that's helping implement that. But that's not a sustainable model for the future. So as we continue to learn, we'll incorporate more and more simulations and even AI that can help. Where should the robotic arms be set up? Where the trocars should be placed? In simulations to help surgeons in training or staff in training to set up. So we'll incorporate more and more technology into this to make it a more scalable solution.
Okay, so from the perspective of a major like Medtronic, we understand that it might be like heavy in investment to have those learning sessions and learning of the staff. For smaller companies, how do you integrate that in your strategy?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll take that first. So for me, because I'm a surgeon, when I developed the device, I really thought of the surgeon in mind. Yeah, I wanted something that was very simple that would be adopted, because I know as a surgeon we're really we are not very patient. Yeah, but it's interesting because I use a lot of Medtronic device, and without bias, Medtronic gives really good support, and that makes a huge difference. So for the surgeon, it must first make sense for you to want to use the device. Do not increase my workflow too much. Make sure I get reimbursed fairly. And then what is really important is do not send your sales rep to me, send your tech support. Yeah, we love tech support. So tech support them before the surgery with very good training. Do not leave them alone once they're in the OT. We like the first cases to have OT support, and then also the team, the team, like a small team like ours, we would learn from supporting the cases and knowing what to do, the troubleshooting and all that. And post-op, really be there when they want to troubleshoot. So as a surgeon, I know I get thrown all kinds of equipment all the time. There are like 30 same equipment, but how do I choose? I choose the company that gives the best support. Yeah, that's as easy as that.
Thank you. Maybe from your perspective, Derrick?
Right. I'm actually that tech support that Dr. Lynne is talking about.
Yeah.
So at least on Biobot's side, we are small as well, but we do do our best to give the personal touch, which is our applications team, our few engineers going in, providing the necessary support in the initial few cases or handful of cases. But what I really think would help with adoption is how we design the product with the user in mind, just like what Dr. Lynne was saying as well. With the surgeon in mind, design it in a user-intuitive or surgeon-intuitive way. Don't touch the screen that much. Whatever can be automated, we automate it. And ultimately, that helps with the adoption and pickup and ability to be proficient using our systems too. That's what we have experienced thus far, with a lot of help from our doctors.
Eduardo, you want to add something before we move?
Well, I could mention that most technologies that are truly groundbreaking tend to have very steep learning curves, and steep learning curves could equate to someone's family member on the table. And therefore, it's our priority to essentially expose physicians as much as possible to the actual clinical case ahead of time. So for EndoQuest, that took the form of a digital twin, a simulator, that they have extensive experience with the system prior to doing any clinical cases. And for XCath, that's patient-specific anatomy models that are printed, and the procedures can actually be done and rehearsed ahead of any case. So I think making physicians very comfortable and essentially having seen the movie before and rehearsed it greatly diminishes that learning curve. And that would be very important moving forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving forward, I have a question. So we talked about robotic systems, so big capital equipments. Now we see also a lot of AI systems and maybe also augmented reality systems going to the OR. Do you see them fitting together in one single big system, or do you see them as two separated systems with their own market, their own adopters? What's your thought about this?
Yeah. So I think it really depends on the device. But for something like Plix, it's not really possible for AI to take over the whole system because we are a surgical device doing the surgery. We are not being assisted by something that we are working on. But I would see, because we have software, that we would be able to incorporate AI in the future. And it would be really nice. Now, a lot of devices are standalone, either diagnostic and then the surgical device alone. I would like for my device eventually to have diagnostics together with the surgical. And with AI, it's able to select the eardrums better, the angles, what type of tubes to put, and at which position to place to be very accurate. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think I kind of separate the two with AI exactly how Lynne has described it, being information that is useful for decision making intraoperatively, and so being able to leverage a variety of different algorithms and information to provide surgeons with information on what the anatomy is, or where the critical structures are located, or what the perfusion is at the site of the surgical resection, or things like this, would be important information. And then I look at AR, augmented reality, as really a delivery mechanism for some of that information. With a robot, you've already got a screen, a 3D screen and so forth. So I'm not sure it makes a ton of sense. Maybe you could remove some of that with a headset. Historically, what I've found with surgeons, they don't necessarily like wearing things on their head, although there's lamps and other things that some surgeons do. But sometimes if you're in a long procedure, fatigue and other things, sometimes I don't even like wearing the 3D glasses that we have with our Hugo system. So being, if you can reduce the weight, not have the fatigue factor. But I look at AR as really that visualization component of AI information. So whether it's 3D anatomy or other things that are being overlaid on what they see in the surgical field. So I think there's a variety of ways to do that, but I think the AI is the real value add, honestly.
Yeah, so a surgeon in an exaggerated case might do 20,000 procedures in his lifetime. It's not difficult to imagine a future where AI systems are trained on millions of cases, and therefore surgery and the ability to put software in between surgeons' hands and the end effector will inevitably lead to a future where the best AI model is better than the best surgeon. Now that brings about a lot of different concerns, but I think we've seen the precedent with aviation as well, and therefore, at least in my view, where this will lead is a future where the AI guides surgeons, prevents motions that the AI system could consider dangerous, and if that were to happen, clinical outcomes would significantly improve, and surgery could quickly become a future where going to get operated in a day lost of your life, it's a nuisance as opposed to something that's genuinely dangerous. And I think we're rapidly approaching that. We live in the era of greatest technology improvement of humankind, I'm confident. The pace of acceleration in AI is faster than we've seen with any other technology in human history.
Derrick, you want to add something before we...
No, I was just thinking about Skynet when you were talking about that. But yeah, like Eduardo was saying, AI is inevitable. I just caught my boy using AI to do his homework the other day. I had mixed feelings about it. But I believe in the surgery space, it will be the same. And on Biobot side, we have been seeing it as how it transforms our robot from a tool into an assistant, eventually into a co-pilot for the entire surgical procedure. And that's how we have been molding, infusing AI into our systems as well. So yeah, thank you.
And so if I summarize correctly, if we want to fully benefit for on what AI can bring, we would need at some point a robot between the surgeon and, like you said, the end effector to be able to fully capture the precision and the information that AI could bring. So robotics is here to stay, I think. So thank you for this. Maybe in terms of adoption, there is always discussion about robotics adoption, problems of cost for the hospital, for example. What do you think would be the next trigger of major adoption of robotic systems in the hospitals? What is it? Is it a technological hurdle that we still need to reach? Is it a business model? What could it be?
Yes. So I think I have seen quite a lot of robots which actually failed in the hospital systems because maybe I think a lot is the cost. It's hard to make back the amount you put in. And because the setup time and all that is long, so some surgeons prefer to just do the simple way and get over with it. So I think it must be cost efficient. It must not take the workflow must not be so difficult that it puts people off. But I really think that the big enablers are actually just making things simple and being actually collaborative. I see like 20 versions of the same things, and I think there's a lot of waste, and the surgeons get fatigued being bombarded all the while. So I think it's important to answer the question, is this really needed? And is this, could we collaborate a bit more, do one thing instead of 100 of these robots? And for the adoption, I actually think we need to teach a mindset of change management. So it's very hard to persuade a surgeon to change. They will change if they think it really needed, yeah, and if they think the patient really needs, and so really change management and being open to new ideas.
Oh.
Yep.
I guess I'll focus my response first just on adoption of current robotic systems, and then maybe we can come back and talk about future innovations. But I think for the current innovations, the adoption I think is going to be, as you said, inevitable. I mean, I think surgeons want it in their training. It's even sometimes I hear about difficult to get enough lap cases for their training requirements because they want to spend so much time on robots. And as more and more older physicians that weren't trained on robots start to retire, and you bring in those new surgeons that really are demanding it, I think you're just going to continue to see adoption. And not to diminish at all the patient role in this. I think a lot of them patients are utilizing the resources available and suggesting, even going to their surgeons and saying, are you going to use the robot on this particular procedure? So I think a lot of that is going to continue to drive adoption. But I think cost is a significant barrier today for overall adoption. So that continues to evolve. And I think you'll find more and more companies trying to figure out how to do that. Could be through some business models, as you described. Maybe it's a per procedure type of model. You see that being utilized more and more. So maybe there won't be as much of a capital cost with a disposable or an instrument cost. Maybe it'll be more of a business model around a per procedure expense that's utilized to drive those kinds of adoption. So I think you'll see a combination of innovation to make it simple, lower the cost, maybe some different business models, and then just overall demand from both surgeons and patients to drive forward the systems of today.
So if we look at the history of surgical robotics, it's largely due to the resilience and rare genius of Dr. Fred Moe, and the fact that he was able to find the one procedure where he added clinical benefit to patients. What drove adoption, I would say, is largely marketing for surgical robotics as a class, but I strongly believe that's the past. I believe that surgical robots, to gain commercial adoption, will now once again need to prove enhanced clinical benefit to patients. And that enables, again, doing surgery in areas where current tools are unable to do so, avoiding to go through healthy tissue, doing surgery where it's not available, telerobotics, or enabling a new class of procedure, but not just refining old ones and trying to find marginal benefits. The reality is surgical robotics, in nearly all cases, adds cost, complexity, and time. And something needs to offset that, and that has to be clinical benefits.
Agreed.
I do have a simple answer, because I heard simple being mentioned a lot along the way. Of course, it has to be simple for operation. But from what I've seen so far, when our surgeons, who are, just like Dr. Lynne said, are generally impatient, when they want to adopt something, they do want it to match their current workflow as best as possible. So I would say the main thing to be able to match is workflow. The challenge, however, is every physician has a slightly different workflow. So there should be some flexibility built into a robust robotic system still to enable modifications or adaptation for different kinds of workflow for different physicians and surgeons.
Okay. You talked about clinical benefit, and yeah, it seems the key to be able to build a product that brings clinical value instead of pushing for technology. But so how do you make sure when you design a product that it will have clinical relevance, and also throughout the life of the product? We talked about AI. We hear a lot of now projects where they want to make some follow-up on the clinical data of the patient after surgery to be able to close a loop and then learn about the outcomes to better propose a planning or a surgery. Is it something that you think about when you design your product at Medtronic? Is it something that is?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Eduardo made a great point about the clinical benefit. These are really tools, and the surgeons, have to utilize those tools in an efficient and effective manner, and you need to prove that through clinical trials and other things. But also surgeons are very innovative themselves in using these tools in maybe different ways in developing different techniques. And eventually, some of those techniques become even better than the standard of care, but it takes time to get people trained and prove that the new techniques are there. So the clinical benefit is a really critical point to evolving these. But designing it into the product is absolutely one of the first things we think about, is what is the clinical need, and then do we have a technology that can match it. But you often don't fully understand if that's, it's a hypothesis at the beginning, so you have to test that hypothesis, and obviously that's what pilot studies and clinical trials, and you go back and you modify the design and verify if that truly does meet that clinical benefit. But it's certainly designed with clinical benefit in mind at the beginning.
Yeah, so in my view, if a company wants to have true humanitarian impact, it needs to create sustainable patient value. And by sustainable, I refer to it actually has to be a successful business. So thinking of it standalone as either this is only meant to treat this procedure, or this robot is designed in a way to only enable clinical benefit is unfortunately not sufficient. It has to be the whole life cycle from training, COGS. How are you going to develop new procedures? How are you going to democratize them? Are your procedures only applicable to the top KOLs, or you democratize it to the rest of the field? So it goes much beyond technology. And I would say the most important part of surgical robotics is human factors defined by the complete interaction through the whole life cycle in order to create a sustainable business.
Thank you. Maybe one last topic. So we talk about a lot, notably in the US, about the difference between hospitals and ASCs regarding like market access. In terms of robotics, is it something you think about when you develop your strategy about how you will address both hospitals and surgery centers? Lynne, maybe you have an idea on this?
You're talking about different markets?
Surgery, like clinics, private hospitals, and bigger hospital centers.
Okay. So I think it really depends. Like the private clinics, the doctors have to survive. They are thinking about returns, and so they are. If it makes sense returns wise, they will do it. If it's not very onerous. If you're talking about a big hospital, they have different kinds of reimbursements and all that, so the reimbursement becomes very important. If the hospital has already spent a lot on that robot, they have to make returns. So I think how you select which is the hospital you want to go to, a private, public, or is it a very small center, or is it a one-man clinic? That could be your driver. You know, some products takes off. For example, in India, every day there's a new clinic being formed in India. And so if you have a correct device that really feeds into this market, it could be highly successful.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to add on this? Maybe Derrick or?
Sure. Just sharing from what we have attempted to be able to address both the OR and the ASC side of things is generally there's no one solution that fits everything. We do have a robotic system that's fairly large, fits perfectly in the OR, but once you push it into the clinic, you do face challenges. It's still doable, but you do face challenges. But that's also what drives our engineers to continue to develop. And that's the part that I enjoy actually. But as long as there's a clinical need, going back to the previous one, there's a clinical need, there will be a suitable solution that engineering will be able to come up with.
Michael?
I think with regards to ASCs and outpatient, you just see the demand of patients, desiring that type of solution. And so with our robot in particular, we've made it into a very modular, flexible system. So in theory, we should be able to adapt that system from a hospital to a outpatient day surgery center kind of environment. And I think AI can be a big part of that as well to improve the efficiency, get through as many procedures as possible. That's really important for those day procedure facilities so that they can be cost effective and generate the revenue necessary to sustain it. But thinking about from a cost of the robot and the disposables and all the other things, it's probably going to be pretty simple procedures. So maybe it has to be tailored a little bit towards the types of procedures that will be done in those environments. So it is a very, I think, attractive market and one that we think about as well.
So our robots are designed for angio suites and endo suites. That's on purpose because there are areas that currently robotics haven't penetrated. And going towards an ASC, it really is an exercise of thinking of worst case outcomes and then working backwards from there. And eventually the vision is as surgery becomes safer, more and more procedures will eventually be turned to the ASC regardless. So it's really important to keep that front and center.
Okay. Well, I think that covers our topic today. We are running out of time. Thank you again, everyone, for this very insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.